Peter Doocy spars with Karine Jean-Pierre over some of her old tweets. A liberal goes viral for making friends with Trump supporters at various Trump rallies. And a CEO says we don't have enough lithium for all the electric vehicles that the government wants. All that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Wednesday, September 7th, and as always, I couldn't be happier than to spend these fine mornings doing The Bald Brad Show and hanging out with all of you little semi-fascists and threats to democracy as well as the country, according to Joe Biden. But we come together as a community here on The Bald Brad Show of conservatives and Republicans, going over the stories of the day and bringing you all the news and information you need to know about. So if you want to join us here at The Bald Brad Show, and we hope that you would, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're over at Rumble, hit the plus and give us a comment down below. And if you're listening on any of the podcast airwaves, Apple, Google, Spotify, heck, folks, you can find us anywhere and everywhere, leave us a lovely 5-star review. Not only would you be helping a conservative, but most importantly, you'd be supporting getting conservative thought and ideas out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, folks, it was so hard to get through that opener without hysterically laughing because, like many of you know, us MAGA supporters, MAGA Republicans, conservative Republican, heck, even pro-lifers, you are now a threat to democracy. You are now a threat to the country, according to Joe Biden in the White House. Regardless of him walking back his words, we know how the Democrat Party feels about us. We know how the progressive left feels about us. They've been calling us racist, xenophobes, homophobes, all those things for decades now. This is just another thing to tack onto the list. Well, our lead story of the day here is the gladiator, Peter Doocy, going up and sparring with Karine Jean-Pierre regarding her old tweets. And just watch how she spins this one. If you didn't like her before, folks, you are really not going to like her now. With that being said, let's go ahead and roll into the clip here.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. A follow-up about the MAGA Republican attention. So if we're all in agreement that it is incorrect to say the 2020 election was stolen, what about the 2016 election?
Look, I'm not going to go back to where we were or what happened in 2016. We're going to focus on the here and now. We're going to focus on what's happening today, this inflection point that the president pointed out very clearly, very decisively in a few speeches about what the country needs to do at this time to bring the country together. And he believes that's where majority of Americans are when it comes to protecting our democracy, when it comes to protecting our rights, and when it comes to protecting our freedoms. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to focus on where we are at today.
But just in trying to understand the new attention on the MAGA Republicans, you tweeted in 2016
I knew this was
Trump
coming.
stole an election. You
I was
tweeted-
waiting, Peter, when you were going to ask me that question.
Well, great. Here we go. You tweeted Trump stole an election. You tweeted Brian Kemp stole an election. If denying election results is extreme now,
Yeah.
why wasn't
So
it then?
let's be really clear. That comparison that you made is just ridiculous. I have
How
been
is that
well,
ridiculous?
you're asking.
What? That comparison, Peter, is just ridiculous. It's just apples to oranges. There's no comparison you could possibly make there. Now when things resurface here, and they just called a bunch of you extremists a threat to democracy, a threat to the country, semi-fascist, a litany of other names. Now when it's brought on to her for doing the same thing, all of a sudden it's different. All of a sudden there's no comparison. And you got to love how she's like, oh, let's focus on the then and now. We're going to focus on right now. Even though they keep going back to January 6th, even though they can't leave Trump out of their mouths, even though they can't leave the past in the past, and they're only going to bring it up when it's convenient for them and their narrative, i.e. again, January 6th. Let's continue here.
You're asking me a question.
Yes.
Let me answer it.
And you said it was ridiculous.
I was talking specifically at that time of what was happening with voting rights and what was in danger of voting rights. That's what I was speaking to at the time. And here's the thing. I have said Governor Kemp won the election in Georgia. I've been clear about that. I have said President Trump won the election of 2016, and I've been clear about that. What we are talking about right now is, let's not forget what happened on January 6, 2021, when we saw an insurrection, a mob that was incited by the...
But we're going to focus on the here and now, folks. We're going to focus on what's going on today, not something that happened almost 2 years ago. You gotta love it. It wasn't even 30 seconds ago. Now she's already going back to the then and now.
The person who occupied this campus, this facility at that time, and it was an attack on our democracy. Let's not forget, people died that day. Law enforcement were attacked that day. That was the danger that we were seeing at the time. That's what the president has called out, and that's what he's going to continue to call out. So yes, when you have MAGA Republicans, a extreme part of Republicans who just deny or do not want to really say what exactly happened on that day, or say it was a protest when it clearly was not a peaceful protest. That's not what we saw on that day. Yes, the president's going to call that out.
It's amazing that literally you had an MSNBC reporter stand there and saying it's a mostly peaceful protest. All the while there's literally burning buildings behind the person. She's not going to talk about that. She's not going to talk about literally the billions of dollars that were destroyed in these businesses where literally Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Democrat Party, and the progressive left ran roughshod over these cities. You had Antifa creating autonomous zones in different cities, taking over full blocks where people are doing drugs, they're getting raped, they're looting businesses, they're destroying public and private property. We're not going to talk about any of that, but we're going to hyper focus on something that happened in the past, which a lot of people don't agree with, both Republicans, Democrats, and a majority of the country. That happened, but we're going to hyper focus on a few dozen people out of a ton of people that were outside actually peacefully protesting. We're going to hyper focus on a few of those to push a narrative that you are all somehow a threat to democracy. Just amazing how that works out, isn't it?
And here's the thing, majority of Americans agree with him. Majority of Americans agree with this president on protecting our democracy, protecting our freedom, and protecting our rights. That's what we're talking about today, and that's what the president's going to focus on. All right, we're going to have to move. We're going to have to move.
We're going to have to move because it's not convenient for me, Peter, for you to highlight my old tweets, which in a nutshell is a correlation and connection to being extremist. But she's not an extremist. She's not an extremist for calling Fox News when she was on there. I think it was on MSNBC or CNN or something like that, calling Fox News basically a racist outlet. We got a little bit of a bonus footage here of somebody calling her out once again regarding her statement on illegal immigrants not walking across the border. This is a phenomenal clip here. And Phil Wegman is in this clip, and he's sitting in front of the guy that asks the question. Watch Phil's whole demeanor, the way he looks at her. That's how you know it's a freaking bombshell of a question, just watching Phil's reaction. And I want to give us a little bit of pat on the back here at the Bald Brad Show. We've been covering Phil Wegman for a little while now. Anytime he gets a question, we're going to cover him here on the Bald Brad Show because I think he's up there with Peter Doocy and Jackie Henrich of Fox News. And I think that he doesn't get the coverage he deserves. He does a great job in reporting. We're going to continue to highlight him. And also, the man added us on Instagram, folks. So thank you, Phil. If you are watching this, you're a pleasure to talk with. You are amazing at your job, my friend. Keep up the good work. Even if she doesn't call on you like she did today, she didn't call on our man, Phil Wegman, but we'll continue to spotlight his work here on the Bald Brad Show. Focus on his reaction here, folks. It's hilarious.
Thanks, Karine. I wanted to ask you about the question about migrants, whether they have or haven't been walking across the southwest border. Senator Ted Cruz has publicly suggested that you come down to see.
Look at Phil's reaction. Tell me that's not a oh shit question right there, like him going like, oh shit, this is being asked right now. What's she gonna do? Watch Phil.
See that for
Look
yourself.
Who?
Senator Ted Cruz.
Look at the smirk on that man's face. He knows. What a question. What a question. We're gonna back it up because I interrupted a little bit, but it's the whole orchestration of what's taking place here is just great in the White House. We're gonna go back just a little bit here, folks.
Publicly suggested that you come down to see that for yourself.
Who?
Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. He's suggested that you come down and see for yourself whether migrants are actually crossing the border by foot. Is that something that you would take him up on?
So, I've been to the border. I went in 2018. I stood outside facilities where the Trump administration was separating families, tearing babies.
Oh, here we go. Tearing families apart, tearing babies out of parents' arms. But where was she under the Obama administration when it was all implemented? Where was she when Obama was doing it? Oh, it's not racist when he does it. It's not wrong when he does it. Everything, whenever a Democrat does it, it's completely fine. Everything Joe Biden's doing at the border, completely sane, makes a ton of sense. But when Trump follows the law, of which he was hired to do, he was elected to do as the executive branch. All of a sudden it's wrong. All of a sudden it's terrible. It's just, like I said, it's amazing how this works out. It's amazing how whenever a different administration comes in that's the opposite party, all of a sudden it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Babies out of their mother's arms. Some of those kids still haven't been reunited with their families. And so one thing I will say is I certainly don't need lectures or invitations from Republicans about the border or border policies. And, and I certainly won't take advice on border from anyone who voted against securing record level of funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And while folks are sending invites, I'll use this opportunity to invite him or anyone else next time to vote for record funding for DHS, as President Biden has requested. So we'll move on. We'll move on.
So she answers another one of his questions that isn't as good as that one, but I just love the question of Ted Cruz going like, hey, we invite her to physically watch people walking across the border, of which, she doesn't think actually happens, but she was there in 2018, folks. She knows everything that's going on, and she's not going to be lectured by any of us, either the press or the American public, on how the border is being handled, because they think they're handling it fine, according to her, because she doesn't want to be lectured on how the Biden administration's handling it. Like you just saw there, basically it's Trump's fault, how people are being ripped apart from their parents' arms and all these other things. So, and God, Phil Wegman's reaction was freaking perfect, because it sums up that question on just slapping her up right upside the head. It was phenomenal. Well, speaking of other news here, we have a liberal going viral for attending Trump rallies. There is a clip here of this young man doing yeoman's work, and I think it's a great thing to really show that we're not as divided as much as we think that we are. Because let's be frank, folks, the media does push a division in this country, as do I. I think we are divided on a lot of issues, but I do agree that us Americans, we do agree a lot more than what we really do think. Whether that's anything outside of politics, if you really think about it, whether it's sports or it's food or it's family or it's holidays, whatever it may be. We really do agree on a lot of things. We just don't focus on those things, especially here on the Bald Brad Show. We're a political commentary show, folks. We're not going to zoom in on all those things. We got to zoom in on what makes a difference. Well, a self-described liberal named Samuel Donor on Tuesday told Fox and Friends he attended a recent rally for former President Donald Trump to see if he could make friends and establish a common ground. Like I said, there's a clip here from Fox News. Let's go ahead and watch it together.
Welcome back. Our next guest is a liberal who is going viral for reaching across the aisle to make new friends at a Trump rally.
I'm a liberal, and I went to a Trump rally to see if there was common ground. Going in, I was expecting aggression, but I actually experienced a lot of kindness. Do you want to be friends?
Of course. Loved everybody.
Sure. I'm going to get a hug.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
That last clip was Holly, and she invited me to a women's Bible study, so Malik and I went.
This is Samuel, one of Holly's friends.
And again, we experienced incredible kindness.
They're a fun group of people.
I'm a liberal, and I went...
TikTok user 100 New Friends, a.k.a. Samuel Donner, joins us right now from L.A. Samuel, good morning to you.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Great to meet you. We saw this. We thought we got to talk to this guy. So the idea was you wanted to go to what you, as a liberal, thought would be a hostile environment, a Trump event, and have that turn out.
It actually was much more friendly than I was expecting. As growing up in LA, you think that these events are going to be very aggressive. And also I was kind of just saying that I was a liberal, but I was absolutely baffled that people wanted to talk and would actually be friends with me when I asked, want to be friends? And they said yes.
That's right. So ultimately, I think what you found...
But remember, we're a threat to the country, you guys. You're a threat, you little fascists, to democracy here. You're all MAGA Republicans. You're all Republicans. You're a threat to everybody. It just shows you the damage that some media outlets have done, CNN, MSNBC, and others, that if you as a Trump supporter wore a red hat, you'd be labeled racist. You get the shit kicked out of you on the streets. So if you went to Antifa, if you went to a Black Lives Matter protest, if you went to just any sort of protest that was on the other aisle wearing a MAGA hat, how do you think you'd be treated? Do you think you'd be welcomed with open arms like this man did when he said, hey, I'm liberal, out front to these people, and they welcome him, they invite him to Bible studies? That old cliche, why don't you come in and have dinner with us? We would love to have you, even though you're on the other end of the aisle. we're all Americans at the end of the day. I love this.
Is that it is easy to find common ground with people you do not agree with politically, right?
Yeah, I think that's what like 100 New Friends in Jubilee is about. That's the company I'm working with. Is we're just trying to find common ground between humans, and I think like at the end of the day, humans have a lot more common ground than we're led to believe. So.
Right. Let's take a look. Here's another clip. You trying to find common ground with more humans.
I'm a liberal, and I'm trying to make friends at a Trump rally to see if there's more common ground than I thought. You want to be friends?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm Sam. What's your name?
I'm Todd.
Can you tell me about your shirt?
We're non-binary.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that we are very much against what our current socialist president is doing. We have a tremendous racial problem. We don't have to be part of that. We're not a part of that. We support people of all races, and so anybody that says that Republicans are racist are absolutely incorrect.
So, Samuel, after you made these videos, have you told your friends, hey, you know, I went to this Trump rally and people were friendly, and what has their reaction been?
I mean, like a lot of, well, when I was going over, they're like, you're going to like Memphis, one of like the homicide capitals of the world, and of the country, and like there's a lot of gun violence over there, and then you're going to a Trump rally on top of that. It seemed fairly scary, and I think that's honestly what I wanted to test. Like, can I go into what I thought was the most hostile environment I could? But when I went, I told them like it was actually fairly friendly, and I think again, like it's just about starting those conversations.
Right.
If you can start those conversations, you can actually understand where that common ground is, where it starts, and maybe where it ends. And even where it ends, you can discuss with each other, like, hey, like let's find that common ground.
But you've got to start the conversation, and that's what you did by going there. I think going in, Samuel, you probably thought, you know what, I'm going to ask 100 people. I'll probably get 2 people who said, yeah, I want to be your friend. 49 out of 100 said, yeah, Samuel, I'll be your friend.
Yeah, I was so nervous going in. Like I had a pit in my stomach the whole time. And the Trump rally was the last day I was there. And I was just kind of talking to people around Memphis before that. And so like before the Trump rally, I'm like, okay, no one's going to want to talk to me. And there were a couple people who did not want to talk to me, but overall, everyone was super friendly. And then Holly in that first video that you showed, she invited me to her women's Bible study class, like out of the blue. She was so nice. And then me and my friend Malik went there, and again, like just a ton of empathy.
No kidding. Samuel Donner, thank you for.
I think we need more of this in America, of having these viral, whether they're YouTubers or TikTokers, going out and just showing that we're not as divided as it's portrayed to be. I think in the political sphere, yes, but like I've said, the media, the progressive left have really done a doozy in making Trump supporters and Republicans out to be racist, sexist, bigots, homophobes, all these crazy things, when in actuality, we're just patriots. We just want the best for everybody. We want what's best for this country. We don't think socialism. We don't think paying off student loans. We don't think affordable or affirmative action is the way to go. You know, all these things that Democrats want to push, we don't think that's the right direction for our country. And that's where we divide. That's where we split. And also, it's not okay just yelling out, oh, you're a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. So I love that this young man is spotlighting the gratitude, the humbleness, the loving that Trump supporters and Republicans are, because we carry and conserve the ideas that were passed down from our founding fathers. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what we inherit, and we need to pass that down to other people. We all have a right to pursue our liberties and our happiness here in America, and us sharing those values with one another, even those on the other side of the aisle, by inviting them to Bible study, is a good step forward for our country. Now, with our last story of the day is electric vehicles. And if you recall, the government is pushing this whole thing of having a certain amount of electric vehicles being sold in the United States by like 2030 or 2035. We'll get into the details here. Well, a CEO came out, a CEO of a mining company that mines lithium, basically saying there's no way in hell we're going to be able to meet that demand, which is going to drive up the cost of lithium batteries. Wait till we get into this, folks. Climate provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act put the U.S. back on track towards significant emission reductions, potentially reducing greenhouse gas output by 40% of 2005 levels. But one miner warned that when it comes to the transportation sector, domestic resources for lithium, the most critical mineral used for electric vehicle production, may not be sufficient enough to meet some of the most ambitious targets. The Biden administration, for instance, aims to slash the sale of gas-powered vehicles to 50% of all new purchases by 2030. Yes, we'll eventually have enough, but not by that time. This comes from the CEO of a lithium mining company that was interviewed by Yahoo Finance. Quote, there's going to be a real crunch to get the material. We don't have enough in the world to turn that much lithium production in the world by 2035. And I just want to show you a little bit of an infographic here that shows the key battery raw materials for EVs, electric vehicles. This shows global production and projected demand. So you have it in millions on the left. You have lithium on the right, going all the way to nickel on the right. Nickel obviously is on par. It looks like we'll be able to meet that demand. But if you look by 2050 is what's in yellow, according to 2018 in that, what is that, orangish red, lithium and cobalt, I mean, you look at graphite as well. Just the whole idea of this looks nuts when you look at this graph in terms of what we're able to mine, what we're able to produce to meet the requirement for the government. It's asinine. It's crazy. And this happens all the time with the Biden administration. They put in asinine things without actually thinking how they work. You want a prime example? Afghanistan. You have this whole thing. Let's just pull out. You got people falling from planes. You got people being gang raped by the Taliban. You have them freaking frying up people's babies and freaking fire pits and stoves and all this stuff. They just want to pull out. They don't want to even think about how things need to be solved and handled. Same thing here. They don't want to think about how everything needs to work. They don't want to think about the supply chain, the production, how much is stuff going to cost? Can we actually mine this stuff? They don't want to think about all that. They just institute things, and we'll figure it out later. That's the Democrat Party for you, folks. With the average electric car battery requiring roughly 8 to 10 kilograms of the metal, lithium remains a crucial metal in the transition of emission-free vehicles. Growing demand has caused the price of lithium carbonate to nearly double this year alone. Just this year, it's doubled. So if they can't meet that demand by 2035, do you think that the price is going to go up? Do you think it's going to shoot through the roof? I think so. Meaning the price of your electric vehicle is going to what? Increase through the roof. But the government's forcing businesses to sell at least 50% of their vehicles to be EV free to consumers like you and I. And the EIA projects demand to grow by 40 times in the next 2 decades, with the majority of the supply coming from outside the US. That has complicated climate targets set by the Biden administration. The president has called for half of all new vehicles sold by 2030 to be electric, setting aside billions of dollars in the Inflation Reduction Act to incentivize drivers to make the shift. They're already expensive as it is. I mean, you saw the energy secretary, was it Janet? No, it's not Janet Yellen. I forget her name, but the Treasury Secretary and the electric, the Secretary of Energy coming out and saying, oh, we'll just go buy an electric vehicle. That's how we could deal with all this. That's how we could deal with gas prices. That's how we could deal with inflation. The knucklehead can't figure it out that people just don't have $60,000 laying around. It just shows you the disconnect from our government to the average American. And it's only going to get worse by 2035. It's only going to get more expensive. But those same tax credits come with requirements, as we talked about in the Bald Brad show. In order to get all the tax credits, a certain amount of that vehicle has to be produced here in the United States. To even get half of it, you have to meet certain requirements, which makes most electric vehicles ineligible for you to actually receive that credit in the first place. But they have it all figured out, you guys. They're the ones that are handling this. Whenever you hear the government saying they have things figured out, that they've handled it, they got it all clear, everything's good, you should be worried because the government sucks at everything. Literally everything they implement, absolutely to a T, sucks. So if they say that, you know that's going to suck as well. Once fully operational, the plant will process 30,000 metric tons of lithium per year. The company is also planning another plant to put in North Carolina, which will allow the firm to supply lithium for 1 million electric vehicles per year. The world has changed, Philip said. We're now in an era where everyone's going to want an electric car. I don't want an electric car. I want a gas guzzler. I want a truck. I want a Ford F-150. I mean, the Ford F-150 Lightning's pretty dope. I just don't think the technology's there right now where I want it to be in order for me to shell out that kind of money for that kind of vehicle. I don't buy new cars. I will be buying a freaking clunker for years to come, folks. I live by Dave Ramsey's financial peace. I ain't looking for an electric vehicle. I don't want a $60,000 car. I don't want a $70,000 car. I don't even want a $35,000 car. That's not who I am. I'm an average Joe and I'm an average American, a true American patriot that wants to drive a gas car. I don't want an electric one. While car makers like General Motors have rushed to secure partnerships with domestic mining operations in anticipation of the demand, man, I sound like Joe Biden over here. The mining in Nevada remains the only operational lithium mine with meaningful output. You got China in the mix that wants to dip their hand into it in terms of continuing domestic production of lithium in their country. You got Australia as well, including Chile. Everybody's trying to jump into this. And if now is the time to jump into putting in and buying up stocks for energy, now is the time to do it, because the government is forcing the hand of the private sector to make sure that you're buying an electric vehicle. If you live in the state of California, you can't get a gas-powered car after a certain time. Forget what it is. It's either 2025 or 2030 or something like that, where you could buy a used gas car, but you are pretty much forced, in a nutshell, to buy an electric vehicle here if you're going to buy new instead of used. So we'll see what happens. Prices are most likely going to drive up because you got inflation going up already. And they just said right here, a CEO of a mining company says, look, we can't meet the demand. Prices already doubled with lithium already. You think things are going to get a little bit worse, folks? I think there are. They're going to get a little bit more expensive. So be on the lookout for that. If you're looking to get an electric vehicle, I'd start saving now, folks. It's going to get a little bit pricey. With that being said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for always supporting the Bald Brad Show. And folks, I will see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.